What's up, guys? It is August 28th, coming into you live. The Profit Report with AB and Steve. Welcome on this Thursday night. Tonight, we got a special company that we're going to be covering. You might not have heard of it, the company itself, but I'm sure you have heard of the restaurants that are under this company. And you'll be surprised when I tell you what companies or what restaurants are under this company that we're covering today. AB's out this week. He has a family situation that he's taking care of, so he's not going to be on. You're rocking with me today. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the live. Our goal is to educate you, help you, and dive in deep into some of these companies and ultimately to help you make better decisions from an investment standpoint. Welcome to the live. Appreciate you being here. And before I talk further about the company that we're going to cover today, I'm going to show us a video. The company that we're doing is called Darden Restaurants, and it has a whole bunch of restaurants under it. I'm going to show you guys a video.
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent, adaptive.
So like every other restaurant company in America, Olive Garden is evolving its business to accommodate off-premises service. So what you'll see here is there is curbside pickup outside this Olive Garden in Orlando, Florida. But don't be fooled. Darden Restaurants is still committed to the hospitality that it provides through a full-service experience, especially.
This is just one of the many restaurants Darden Restaurant owns, and the first one is Olive Garden.
Dining in. I sat down with Darden CEO Rick Cardenas to talk about that commitment to hospitality and why Darden is all in on that full service restaurant experience. 40 years at Darden, you've seen a lot of evolution in this company, obviously within the concepts that make up the portfolio. But what other evolution do you see from the time you started at Red Lobster to today that has really transformed this company?
You know, I think we're just a different organization in the size. We really had two brands. Mm-hmm. And, you know, now we have 10, but of the two that we had when I really started, there was only one left. And so the transformation had been the understanding that back when Clarence was here, realizing that scale really matters. Mm-hmm. And making that first big acquisition of Rare, which was a bet the company kind of acquisition that Clarence made. But it was a great deal for us because it gave us more scale and we kept building on that.
That little sign that you saw, that's the second restaurant that they own. LongHorn Steakhouse is another company that's under their portfolio.
You know, I think the evolution, you know, when I started in the business, there wasn't this category called fast casual.
Right.
There was casual dining, fine dining, and then fast food. And you know, fast casual came in and found that, you know, maybe there's a little bit that we can do on the speed side. And so I think the evolution for us has been, okay, how do we think about making the food even better and amping up the service, right? Because there's got to be a reason people come to us versus something else. And we just have great food and we have the most attentive service that we can possibly have for the right value for our guests. And I think our value is better today than when I started.
Yeah. You've said before that full service is what Darden's going to stick with. This is what you guys do best, and that's what you want to stick with. But you mentioned fast casual, and obviously fast casual in a lot of ways, very adjacent to casual dining, especially in maybe hospitality, quality of food. I'm curious, why stick to your guns on full service?
It's what we know. You know, and you think about our organization, we're the biggest player in full service restaurants. We're at least twice as big as the next biggest competitor. And remember, I told you one of our biggest advantages is our scale.
Yeah.
The scale advantage is different when we're in another segment. The other thing is it's a very different operating model. Fast casual, fast food, very different operation than full service. We know full service. And, you know, we're a very large public company. And, you know, an investor would say, why do you need to be a fast casual? We can buy fast casual. So we think about it strategically too.
The rise in off-premises, I think, has been one of the reasons why a lot of folks have started to write the obituary for casual dining. And of course, there's been some high-profile bankruptcies, Red Lobster, TGI Fridays. Seeing the lack of performance from some other concepts and seeing the rise in delivery, drive-through, people jump to the conclusion, well, full service is dead. People don't want to go eat in a restaurant. Of course, COVID drove that narrative as well. Why is that wrong?
Well, it's wrong for a lot of reasons. People still want to connect. They're busy. They've got a lot going on in their lives. Many people are working from home. They don't have as much interaction with people or with their friends. It might be more technology to do that. And so they always want to find time to spend with their family and friends. And what better place to do that than around a dining table in a restaurant where you don't have to do anything. Everything is done for you.
Off premises has become obviously a big part of the restaurant's industry's success. And Olive Garden is such a great case study in how this has affected the business. You guys resisted delivery, third-party delivery especially, for a while, finally moved over in that direction. And you reported in your recent quarterly earnings that it was a big part, it was incremental to your sales. Tell me about that decision and how hard it is to make a decision that does change so much of the operation.
Olive Garden is such a great off-premise brand.
Mm-hmm.
Before COVID, we were in the high teens, going towards 20%. We were already testing curbside to go, but interestingly, consumers didn't want to pick it up at curbside. They wanted to come into the restaurant, but we were at the forefront of that before. Then COVID happened and we had to go curbside, and our teams rallied. And what I learned about our teams during COVID was they can do anything. We don't have to tell them what to do. They'll figure it out. And I cannot be more proud of Olive Garden and LongHorn, what they did during COVID to keep our company moving forward. And then what's interesting is we didn't jump in the delivery game back then. And a lot of other people did.
What's up, AJ?
We didn't think it was right for us.
Yeah, we're talking about Darden Restaurant, which owns Olive Garden, which owns LongHorn Steakhouse, and a whole bunch of other restaurants.
For a lot of reasons that we've talked about publicly. And we kept talking about those reasons publicly, but we kept growing our to-go business without that. You know, Olive Garden had gotten into the mid-20s in to-go. LongHorn had doubled their to-go business. Cheddar's didn't have really a whole lot of to-go business, and they went a lot higher. But we knew that there was a consumer that we weren't reaching that didn't want to come pick it up. But we wanted to do delivery our way. And so we do that.
Yep. We do a report every year, America's favorite chains. And in January, using data from Technomic, this year, 4 of the top 10 were Darden brands.
Yes.
Last year, 5 of the top 10.
Last year, yeah.
You'll get back there next year. I know you can do it. What is the secret to that?
Our job is to provide great experiences that are memorable for them. And we become a big part of their lives. You know, Ruth's Chris it was number 1.
So guys, this company owns a whole bunch of brands that you're familiar with. You might not be familiar with the company, like I said. AJ says, what's up? What did Olive Garden do now? Olive Garden did not do anything. Although I am a fan of Olive Garden. I am a big fan. So Darden Restaurant, just to kind of give you guys a perspective, what restaurants that they own. What restaurants does Darden own? So they own Olive Garden. They own LongHorn Steakhouse. They own Yard House, which I've never been to. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Cheddar's. The Capitol Grill, which is upscale steak and seafood restaurant. I'm very familiar with that. I don't go there often. It's not my scene. But that's another one they own. Chewy's, Season 52. Also, I don't know what that is. Eddie V's Prime Seafood, Bahamas Breathe. And according to the video that we just watched, 4 of the top 10 restaurants they own. Yeah, I don't know where that is. Chewy's. Tex-Mex restaurant chain acquired in 2024. You familiar with that, AJ? Top 10 in the U.S. Oh, you guys have it there? Yeah, well, Darden owns it now. What the hell? I never heard of none of these restaurants. These critics pick the most random. But as we know, the restaurants that I just mentioned, very popular restaurants. I mean, Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, and Capitol Grill themselves are very popular. AJ says, I'm sure you've gone there. Oh, the Mexican restaurant in Westheimer. Okay. I didn't know the name, but I have been there. You're right. With the jalapeno ranch. Okay. So now they own them. That was a recent acquisition. They acquired them in 2024. But yeah, this company is a big player. This company is a big player. And I think at one point, Red Lobster used to be part of them as well. So we just read up a little bit about their history. So it's headquartered in Florida, has more than 1,800 restaurant locations, 175,000 employees. The firm owns 3 fine dining restaurant chains. You guys familiar with Roots Chris Steakhouse, Eddie V's Prime Seafood, and the Capitol Grill? And then they also have 7 casual dining, the Olive Garden, LongHorn, Cheddar's. So William Bill Darden opened his first restaurant, the Green Frog, in Waycross, Georgia, in 1938. So they have a lot of history. At age 19. Oh, shout out to our favorite Nigerian CEO of Red Lobster, Young Excellence. Oh yeah, I love that guy. Pure excellence. I think he used to run. Was it Panera Bread or Panda Express? He used to run that before he got the job for Red Lobster. But yeah, amazing young guy. I think he's like 35. Young excellence for sure. So he founded the company at 19. He later founded the Red Lobster Inns of America and opened the first Red Lobster restaurant in Lakeland, Florida. Then, which grew quickly, formed the basis of the organization that later became known as Darden Restaurant. What do you know about lobster? I know, right? Well, the guy is smart. He's a business dude. But yeah, you're right. I mean, what does he know about lobster? The initial Red Lobster franchise was lauded by diners and critics alike. The restaurant became successful, and by 1970s, had expanded to 3 locations in the state, with 2 more under construction. While the locations were profitable, the company needed more resources to expand. As such, Darden sold the company to food giant General Mills that year. And after an extended illness, Darden died on March 29 at the age of 75. So General Mills, they make breakfast cereal. And in 1982, maybe actually AI is our best bet. Darden Restaurant Inception, key milestones, and interesting facts. So Bill Darden started the company, as we said, at age 19. Then he founded Red Lobster. And then to finance his expansion, he sold the 5 Red Lobster locations to General Mills. 1982, under General Mills ownership, the first Olive Garden opened in Orlando, Florida. This is the casual Italian chain would become a major growth driver, with per restaurant sales soon matching Red Lobster's. So right off the bat, Olive Garden was a hit. Then General Mills spins off the restaurant division as a new independent publicly traded company named Darden Restaurant in honor of its founder. Okay. Darden launches new concepts, including Bahama Breeze, Smoky Bones. Oh, so they also owned the Smoky Bones Barbecue Sports? And then they later sold it in 2008. It says between 2007 to 2024, Darden executes a series of strategic acquisitions to build its brand portfolio. They acquire Rare Hospitality, bringing LongHorn Steakhouse and the Capital Grille into its fold. And this company used to have a black CEO as well, Darden Restaurant, before the current CEO. 2012 acquires the Yard House beer centric chain. 2014, they sell Red Lobster to Golden Gate Capital for $2.1 billion, following pressure from activist investors. And 2017, they acquired Cheddar Scratch Kitchen for $780 million. Then 2023, Roots Chris Steakhouse for $715, and 2024 acquired Tex-Mex chain Chuy's for $605 million. So they've done a lot of acquisitions. So interesting facts: a wasteful observation led to a takeover. It says in 2014, activist investor Starboard Value famously released a 294-page presentation criticizing Darden's management, including its practice of serving too many of Olive Garden's free breadstick at once. Though management defended the move as Italian generosity, Starboard won the proxy battle and replaced the entire board. Man, to be in trouble for serving too many breadsticks, that is hilarious. I love the breadsticks at Olive Garden, man. My sister used to work there when I was in high school, so we used to go there a lot. I love the breadsticks. But, investors were not happy that the company was given too many breadsticks. And as a result, they ended up changing the whole board. So you can see how investors are really focused on the bottom line and on the money. So in 1999, Darden established the Culinary Institute of Tuscany in Italy to train Olive Garden chefs. The largest full-service company. Following its spinoff from General Mills, Darden became the world's largest full-service restaurant company and maintains that position today with a portfolio of more than 2,100 restaurants. So they are the biggest restaurant company in the world. 2,100 restaurants, 200,000 employees. And then they also do some giving back. All right, guys. So let's see. How are they doing? I mean, they have a whole bunch of restaurants. This is the biggest restaurant chain in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. Very well-known names in the restaurant industry. They got to be doing good, right? They have to. Before we jump into the financial statement, let's just take a peek at what their stock is trading at right now. Let's see if their stock is pretty. Okay, their stock is currently trading at $206.71. PE ratio at 23. That's not too expensive. They offer dividend, 2.9. Not bad. Within this year, actually, their stock has just steadily climbed with little dips here and there, but for the most part, it had just gradually been increasing. I mean, last year around this time was $156. Currently, it's at 206. So that's a $50 increase from the previous year around the same time. So their stock is not doing bad. It looks in the positive. It's up 31% over the past year. So let's dive a little bit deeper and see what's going on. He says, do max. What do you mean max? What you mean, AJ? Let me know what you mean. Oh, they already have 2025 annual report? What? No way. Oh, max on the stock, not 1 year. So the max is currently where it is right now. It is currently it's at its max. So they're doing fairly well from a stock price perspective. Let's see if it could be rationalized by their annual statement. And they already have their 2025 annual statement. So this means that they have a different fiscal year. And I know, AJ says, man, I can't argue with that. That's a nice performance. Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, they do have a lot of restaurants. So I hope that they are doing well. But they already have their 2025 annual statement. This means that they have a different fiscal year. I've said this in the past before, just in case people that are new. A company could adopt any 12-month period as their fiscal year. It could be from January to December 31st, as like the regular calendar year, or they could adopt from March to March to February. Like yesterday, we did Jesus, well, brain fart. We did Dave and Buster's, and they did February to February, and so that's what they chose. Some companies do March to March. But looking at, they already have their 2025 annual report. It must be a different fiscal year. We're going to find out when that is. So this is one of so we're reviewing the latest information, essentially. That's why it's important. All right. So it says we operate in a dynamic and competitive industry, and we have proven we can successfully navigate any environment thanks to the breadth of our portfolio and our winning strategy rooted in being brilliant with the basics and our 4 competitive advantages. And the 4 competitive advantages to them is, what's up, San? How you doing? What's going on with you? AJ says Cracker Barrel is going back to its old logo. I know. It is sad. They are going back. And I think they're aiming for that CEO. They're trying to get rid of her. And there's also other companies trying to vie for a position, like Shake Shack CEO. I mean, Trump got involved. I mean, it was a little subtle change with Cracker Barrel, but for some reason has caused a lot of uproar, and it's bizarre. I don't think it was a big deal. But today, the company that we're doing, guys, is called Darden Restaurant, which owns Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse. They own the Capitol Grill. They own Chewy's. They own a whole bunch. They own 4 of the top 10 restaurants in the U.S. And they're the biggest restaurant group in the whole wide world. So it's a big restaurant group. Probably never heard of it, but they own these major restaurant brands. So they say they have 4 competitive advantage: sales and earning. Total sales increased to $12 billion, blended by same restaurant sales. Increases of 2% in sales from the acquisition of 103 Chewy restaurants. Return of capital, it says we returned $1.1 billion to shareholders. So they do give back in dividend if you own the stock. And they say performance against long-term framework. This is our long-term framework, calls for a 10%, 15% total shareholder return. Over time, we delivered a total shareholder return of 11.3. Over our 30-year history as a publicly traded company, they have achieved an annualized shareholder return of 10% or greater. Wow. When considering Darden stock appreciation and plus dividend yield. So their stock is doing pretty good, and they have been doing well over the past 30 years. And they're constantly adding new restaurants to the mix. So they recently acquired Chewy's. It's a Mexican restaurant. AJ been there. I've been there. AJ just reminded me that I have been there. Completely forgot. And so when they bought that, they added 103 Chewy restaurants to their portfolio. And they bought that company for, I think, $600 to $700 million. Look at this. This is all the companies that they own: Olive Garden, LongHorn, Yard House, Roots Chris Steakhouse, Cheddar's, The Capitol Grill, Chewy's, Season 52, Eddie V's, Bahamas Breeze. They used to also own Red Lobster, but they sold that off. They used to own Smoky Bones. They sold that off. So in fiscal year 2025, we had the privilege of serving more than 440 million guests. That's a lot. How did they know that number exactly, though? Our teams worked hard to make, so the biggest restaurant in the world served 440 million guests. It says our teams worked hard to make each one of these occasions an exceptional dining experience by focusing on culinary innovation and execution, providing attentive service, and engaging atmospheres. Guys, are you guys a fan of Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse, the Capitol Grill? They own all of those. You guys a fan of any of those places? It's the biggest restaurant group in the whole wide world. So culinary innovation. What's up, Bree? How you doing? I know you just joined in. So the company we're doing today is a Darden Restaurant. It owns Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse, Capitol Grill. It owns Chewy's. It owns, top 4 of the top 10 restaurants. It is the biggest restaurant group in the whole wide world. And they served 440 million people in 2025, in fiscal year 2025, which includes some of the 2024. So this is how they're, making sure that people are happy. It says culinary innovation and execution, return of fan favorites, steak gorgonzola Alfredo, and stuffed chicken marsala at Olive Garden, which were removed from the menu during COVID. Both were improved with higher quality ingredients and easier execution for the restaurant teams. So they brought back some favorites for Olive Garden. An addition of healthier chicken dish, lemon garlic chicken at LongHorn Steakhouse, which addressed the menu gap and has scored extremely well in guest satisfaction ratings. You guys like any of these restaurants? I love Olive Garden. I mean, it's a lot of carbs, but I love their food. I used to get the chicken Alfredo, man. That was my jam. And my sister used to work there, so I used to get the hookup. And their dessert too, man. Can't sleep on their dessert. Their dessert, man, is pretty good. My sister used to bring it every night, man. I used to sneak in and steal some of her dessert. Used to bring that chocolate, chocolate cake. But yeah, I love Olive Garden. I love LongHorn Steakhouse. What do you guys think? You guys rock with any of these restaurants that they have? It says launch of new and improved pizza platform at the Yard House. See, I'm not familiar with the Yard House. They don't have that in the Northeast. So they make pizza. So it says featuring high quality pizzas that are cooked in half the time. The Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen culinary team leverages Darden's purchasing power to offer great food at wow price. One way to do that is by capitalizing on lower cost opportunity buys to create limited time offers. During the year, Cheddar's offered several limited time offers that drove strong guest satisfaction scores for price affordability. They included 2 grilled pork chops topped with caramelized onions and bourbon glaze for $12.99. I mean, that's a pretty good price. A Texas T-bone for $21.49 and a bone-in ribeye for $22.49. Each served with honey butter croissants and 2 sides of that wow price. I'm already sold on this, man. I'm about to run and get that myself. The other thing that they do is attentive service. Because Darden Restaurant owns what's called like a fast casual. So it's not like you're just a regular casual restaurant. There is speed involved as well. So they want to give you the food fairly quickly. So it's not a fast food per se like McDonald's and them, but it's not like a dine-in restaurant where it takes a very long time for you to get your food as well. So these The companies that they own, the restaurants they own, they're called, it's the fast casual. So pace of meal is another advantage that they have. It says guests who visit our restaurants continue to have great experiences, which is reflected in record or near record guest satisfaction scores across all our brands. But in a world that has gotten faster, full service restaurants have gotten slower. We know Steve turning into an influencer said, run, don't walk to Olive Garden. That's funny. We know we could improve on valuing our guest time, and we have an opportunity to drive incremental sales over time by capturing the occasion for a quicker meal. Guys, if you're just joining, we're covering the company Darden Restaurant, which is the biggest restaurant in the world. Owns like Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse, Capitol Grill, Chuy's, Texas, say Mexican restaurant. And they had 400 million visitors in fiscal year 2025. They are mentioning some of the things that sets them apart. So in this case, they're talking about pace of the meal. So they're talking about speed and how quickly you got to bring the food to the guests. We know we could improve on valuing our guests' time when they have an opportunity to drive incremental sales over time by capturing the occasion for a quicker meal. The opportunities vary by brand, and it's something each brand will continue to focus on over the long term. It says, for example, the Cheddar Scratch Kitchen business model is fueled by efficiency and the ability to leverage capacity and speed to serve more guests. So Cheddar finished the year with its highest speed of service guest satisfaction score in 5 years. So they're speeding up, man. Convenience. In fiscal 2025, we successfully rolled out first-party delivery at Olive Garden, began piloting it at Cheddar's. They're a little bit late to the game. This was a big thing about Olive Garden. They weren't doing a lot of delivery. But now they're starting to do that. But yeah, nowadays you almost have to. It says guests had been asking us for small order home delivery options, and they continue to show that they're willing to pay for the convenience. But we had real concerns about the third-party model. It was important for us to find a way to address this guest need without disrupting the team member or guest experience, and without compromising our competitive advantage and operational simplicity. So they partnered with Uber Direct to address their concerns. So they're talking about how that benefited them. Engaging atmosphere. So this is another thing that that sets them apart. San says she liked Cheddar's. New restaurants, providing an engaging atmosphere at each one of our restaurants is fundamental to creating exceptional guest experiences. During fiscal 2025, we tested new, smaller prototypes for Yard House and Cheddar's. What do you usually get from Cheddar's, San? These prototypes help lower construction costs, enable the brands to build out their new restaurant pipelines. This is something we noticed with Dave & Buster's too. Dave & Buster's, some of their locations could expand up to like 70,000 square feet. But now with their newer models, they're reducing their space, because if you have a lot of space, you're going to pay a lot for leases as well. So we're noticing this as well with the Darden Restaurants. They're testing out smaller smaller prototypes. It says, for example, at the center of every Yard House is the bar with more than 100 beers on tap, which is the cornerstone for the energized vibes. While the new Yard House prototype is significantly smaller, it still features 90 different beers on tap, as well as their full menu. San says they closed down in Mississippi. I haven't been there in years. And Bree says the bread is everything. You talking about the bread at Olive Garden or Cheddar's? Oh, she said I go to the one in Slidell. Oh, so they got good bread, huh? Restaurant maintenance and remodels. It says our facilities and remodel team partner with each brand operation team every day to ensure we're delivering on the promise to provide engaging atmosphere. Each year, we spend on average approximately $200,000 per restaurant for maintenance and remodels to keep our buildings fresh and inviting. Oh, Cheddar. So Cheddar's got good bread. Okay. So they spend 200K on the. If you see any of those restaurants that they own, they spend 200K per year just to keep it fresh. So they have a 5-year planning process. So they look to see if they have the right portfolio of brands. I mean, they're constantly acquiring companies. They bought that Chewy's in 2024, so it's fairly new. It says we capture available synergies. It says during fiscal 2025, we completed our 5-year planning process. And it says each one of our brand leadership teams have a clear understanding of their role and their portfolio. And it says focusing on what they need to do to win today into 2030. So the 5-year planning process also yielded other key outcomes. So they still want to do 10 to 15% total shareholder value. So they want to, generate positive returns. And they updated their framework to reflect a greater emphasis on sales growth with appropriate investments. Okay. By the way, guys, how's my audio coming? Is it good? Because I was sharing my audio earlier and I didn't turn it off. I just realized it. If it's echoing, I'll reshare. Let me know if it doesn't sound right. As a result, we have increased the contribution from the new restaurant growth to be 3 to 4%. So they do give out dividend as well. Thank you, San. San says it's good. So this is their goal. One of the things, the key metrics for restaurants is same restaurant sales to increase. So their new plan is they want to grow same restaurant sales by 1.5 to 3.5. New restaurant growth from 3% to 4%. And this is the biggest restaurant in the world, and they still want to grow a lot. They also want to buy their own shares. They want to pay out dividend. So this is some things that they're prioritizing for the next 5 years. It is crazy though, right? When you think about it, like it almost seems sometimes unachievable. Like every year you want to grow. Restaurant makes 10 million. Next year you want to grow a little bit, and then next year. I mean, at some point, right? It's gonna be, especially with a declining population. Like you're not gonna grow. It just seems, I don't know. We have to think about that. But whenever people don't see same store sales not increase, they kind of like penalize you. It's like, oh, their same store sales has not gone up. But it's like when you take it in consideration, it's like, hold up. I mean, you could only go so much. All right, so we're talking about their dividend. Let's see what else. So considering strategic alternatives for Bahamas Breeze, it says on May 15, 2025, we closed 15 underperforming Bahama Breeze locations, leaving the 28 highest performing Bahama Breeze restaurants in our portfolio. It says, after further review, we made the difficult decision that these remaining location in the Bahama Breeze brand are not strategic priority for us. Oh, shoot. Man, so they're saying that it could have the potential benefit for a new owner. So it says, consequently, we're considering strategic alternatives for Bahama Breeze, including a potential sale or converting restaurants to other Darden brands. Ooh, so Bahama Breeze is not getting any no love. You guys know what Bahama Breeze is? I feel like I've seen a picture of it, but I've never been. So it looks like they about to sell this this restaurant chain. So if you got a little money, you know what I mean? You could buy you a little Bahama Breeze. What do they sell at Bahama Breeze? Is it just like a bar? Bree says she's never been. Rebecca's like, ooh. Rebecca's about to start getting her money together. It seems like it's in Florida, Georgia, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Washington. They sell like margaritas and stuff like that. See, what kind of food do they sell? I go to the menu and it shows me. Oh, I guess, okay. Maybe let me just see. What kind of food do they serve? Okay, they got some beef empanadas, creamy spinach and artichoke, yuca cheese sticks, chicken wings, chicken tostones, crab and 3-cheese dip. I mean, the price seems reasonable. Coconut shrimp, Jamaican jerk wings. Well, there you have it, guys. If you got some money, this Bahama Breeze is potentially for sale. So you can just talk to Darden and be like, hey, I'm trying to buy that. It says, just as when we consider adding a brand to our portfolio, we use the same set of criteria to evaluate the brands in our existing portfolio. It should be a full-service dining concept with broad guest appeal. So maybe that's the reason they're getting rid of it too, because it's Bahama Breeze. It makes it a little bit niche. And it says be able to grow at a greater rate than the target included in our long-term framework, and be big enough to impact our financial performance over time. Unfortunately, Bahama Breeze no longer fits some of these criteria. Okay, so sale of Olive Garden Canada restaurants. Ooh, Canadians ain't rocking with Olive Garden? What's up? It says on July 14, 2025, we closed on the sale of 8 Olive Garden locations in Canada to Recipe Unlimited, the largest full-service restaurant operator in Canada. These 8 restaurants are now franchised, and at closing, we entered into an area development agreement with Recipe to open 30 more Olive Gardens over the next 10 years. Okay, their expertise in the Canadian market will help Olive Garden better operate locally. Okay. So they talk about international franchises. Our international and franchising team is focused on growing our global presence. It says as of May 25, 2025, 154 franchise locations, which includes 63 in the continental US and 91 outside of the continental US. This is one of the key benefits of acquiring Ruth's Chris was the added scale brought to our franchise business. The revenue from 74 franchise Ruth's Chris location enabled us to accelerate investments and resources. In addition to the agreement with Recipe, we also have a new area of development with partners in India and Spain, each of which calls for the development of 40 Olive Garden locations. This is the second time India is mentioned. Yesterday, Dave & Buster's also mentioned India, and they're creating a Dave & Buster's in India. But what stood out to me was they prioritized India before the other international locations. And then here too, it looks like India, they're going to have Olive Garden. That's cool. But you should see. So this is also an indication how India is becoming a very big player in global economics. Investing in our team members. It says we invest $40 million annually in training and career development. Competitive compensation and benefits. What? It says on average, Across our brands, our hourly team members earn more than $24 per hour? Really? Dang, that's not bad. $24 per hour? How much is that per year? That's like what, 55K, something like that? How much is 24 the hour per hour? That's pretty good. If you worked at Olive Garden, you make that much? How much is 24 an hour annually? Oh, just a little shy than 50K. That's pretty good though. I mean, I don't know any other restaurants paying $24 per hour, including tip income. Oh, so they're adding the tip. Okay. Maybe that's why. AJ says, does it say any improvements on Chewy when they bought it? They did not mention that, but in all their restaurants, whether it's Chewy's, LongHorn and stuff, they do spend $200,000 per each location. So that did they do that, but I did not see yet, at least, any specific improvements that they made on Chewy's. Maybe we'll see it down below. I'm low-key impressed with the $24. I didn't think they make that much, but apparently they do. That's pretty good. Career growth and engagements are higher. Retain, reward, retain. People's strategy propelled 1,100 hourly team members into management positions. Okay. And we promoted 270 general managers and managing partners. So it looks like they promote within. It says strengthening our communities. They talk about, some of the things that they help out with: fighting hunger, hurricane relief. Cool. Building our legacy, established 30th anniversary as a publicly traded company. So they've been publicly traded for 30 years. All right, let's see. And their annual statement is 99 pages. It is so refreshing when they're not just giving you a whole bunch of pages for no reason. Like Dave & Buster's was good too. It wasn't a lot of pages, just efficient. You know what I mean? There's a lot of just nonsense sometimes that they add. Okay, so they finally get into it. So Darden Restaurant trades under the symbol DRI. That's what the stock is if you're interested in buying it. We looked at it earlier. We're going to dive into it a little bit further, but this is where its current stock is, $206. This is the biggest restaurant chain in the world, over 2,000 locations. So it's currently trading at $206, but it trades under the symbol DRI. It is based in Orlando, Florida. Let's see. And their stock is at an all-time high right now. So we're trying to see if their financial statement could help us see, should their stock be this high? Is it worth investing? Should you, consider looking into this company? All right, so Darden Restaurants is a full-service restaurant company. As of May 25, 2025, owned, operated 2,100 restaurants through subsidiaries in the United States and Canada. We already mentioned this: Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse, Cheddar's, Chewy's, Yard House, Capital Burger, Capital Grill. Yeah, that part surprised. I thought Capital Grill was like a private company. I didn't know it was part of Darden's. Initially, when I looked at that, I was surprised. So locations wise, they have 927 Olive Gardens, 591 LongHorn Steakhouse, 181 Cheddar's, 108 Chewy's, Yard House 88, Roots 82, Capital Grill 71, Season 52 43, Eddie V's 29, Bahama Breeze 28, and the Capital Burger at 3. So Olive Garden is the biggest, followed by LongHorn Steakhouse, and they have 8 Olive Gardens in Canada as well. in other places where they have franchises, it looks like Garden is also the biggest over there. In Latin America, they have 32 of them. In Asia, they have 5. Middle East, they have 3. Caribbeans, they have 1. And then Roots Chris, also in Latin America, they have some. In Asia, 16 of them. They incorporated in 1995. We looked at the history. So let's see. It says, so in 2024, they acquired 100% of Chewy's for $649 million. And inclusive of 35.4. So when they did buy Chewy, they had $35 million. Chewy had $35 million of cash balanced. It says they financed the acquisition with a portion of the proceeds from the issuance of, so they took out some debt, about $400 million of bond to finance that. And then another bond as well. I don't see yet if they had to do some remodel for that. They also are franchising the Olive Gardens in Canada. What's up, book buyer? What's going on? Hello. If this is your first time, welcome to the live. Appreciate you being here. We're covering Darden Restaurant, which is the biggest restaurant chain in the whole world. Has Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse, Capitol Grill, etc. If you have any questions, man, or lady, whoever you are, feel free to ask. On June 2025 earnings call, we announced the decision to explore strategic alternatives to Bahama Breeze. So they also have Bahama Breeze, but they look like they want to sell that off. It's not doing so well. So if you got some money, guys, Bahama Breeze is for sale. All right, what else? Segment information. So restaurant brands. So Olive Garden is internally developed brand and its largest full-service dining Italian restaurant operator. Most dinner menu entree prices range from $12 to $23.50, and then most lunch entree from $9.50 to $11.50. You know, it's fairly affordable. You know, especially when you consider like fast food. I mean, you could buy a lunch entree from $9.50 to $11.50. I mean, that's pretty good. LongHorn Steakhouse, which they acquired through their, they acquired this company called Rare Hospitality. That's how they got LongHorn in 2007. And they talk about the price range from 14 to 41. Book buyer says McDonald's prices are crazy. No more dollar. It really is. McDonald's price is crazy. You want to get a full meal. Honestly, you're spending 11 or 12 bucks. If I could get for 12 bucks, if I could go to Olive Garden to eat, I'd rather do that. Yeah, McDonald's has gotten expensive. But we did cover McDonald's in a previous segment. They are doing really well financially, though. And then he says, you are hungry 2 hours later. Fact. I know you're eating garbage, but financially, man, they are doing really well. McDonald's is one of the most efficient businesses where we reviewed, and they're making a lot of money. So from a business standpoint, they're doing well. But yeah, from a food perspective, it is expensive, and it doesn't keep you full at all. Yeah. All right. So this company owns a lot of restaurants. So they just talk about how much the prices range for the different places that they have. The Capitol Grill is expensive. I think I've been there maybe once. I don't like to spend that much on food. It says, book buyer says, I'm not surprised. This is good bookkeeping information. It really is. And, from an investment standpoint too, this also helps to kind of just drill down a little bit and you find out more information. It helps you make better investment decisions. That's what our goal is, to educate the people. Eddie V's, Bahama Breeze. All right, so we already have mentioned some of these ones that they own. So they talk about their growth, how many restaurants. So in 2021, they used to have about 875 Olive Gardens. They currently have 935. So they've been growing steadily. Same thing with LongHorn Steakhouse, 533 restaurants in 2021. Now they have 591. And then look at their sales as well. On the right side, look at their sales. Year over year, they have been just you know what I'm saying, doing well, better and better. Like 7 billion in 2021, then 9.6, then 10.4, 11.3 billion. And then their latest 2025 data shows $12 billion. So from an investment standpoint, when you see that, that's good. Increasing sales, increasing revenue year over year, that is always good. So we're going to drill down a little bit further to see if that, you know, how profitable are they there, right? Because revenue is just one part of the picture. Recent and planned restaurant growth, it says during fiscal 2025, we added 103 company-owned Chuy's restaurants. That's their recent acquisition, which is a Mexican restaurant. They bought that in 2024, which came with 103 locations and $35 million that the company had. They took that in as well. So they're talking about in 2025, they opened 15 Olive Gardens, 16 LongHorn Steakhouse, Cheddar's, 3 of them, Chuy's, 7, Yard House. So all in total, they opened 56 new locations. Bookbuyer says, does anyone have money to invest nowadays? See, oh, it's crazy. I love this. This is what I want to do for work. Hey, that's awesome, book buyer. Yeah, you know, if this is what you want to do for work, there are a few things that you could study for. If you want to do this, you could study for, you know, your Series 7, Series 65, or you could do accounting or finance and do this, or you could just hop on YouTube just like we're doing and review companies. Or you going to school for a few days to be a bookkeeper, but they don't have. Do they have a? Because my background is in accounting. What are you studying? They don't have a major for bookkeeping. What are you studying? So right here, and this is how much they spent. Oh, it's a diploma. Okay, good for you. I mean, bookkeeping is a needed service all the time. Yeah, my background is in accounting, so I get it, man. I used to do some bookkeeping myself. So they spent, yeah, man. That's an automatic follow. Yeah, please subscribe, like. Yeah, we go live every day. We've been going live for like over 40 days. So feel free, man, to and I keep saying man. I hope you are a guy. I keep saying man. If you are a woman, I apologize. All right, Olive Garden, 15 of them. It cost them about 4.5 to, I'm a female. Oh, I'm sorry. Good thing I asked. Olive Garden. So for the 15 locations, it cost them 4.5 to 6.2. LongHorn Steakhouse. And look at the square footage as well. So LongHorn Steakhouse has less square feet than Olive Garden. Man, maybe I haven't been to Olive Garden in a while. Olive Garden, approximate dining seats, 250 people? Really? Man, I haven't been to Olive Garden in a while then. I don't know why I thought LongHorn Steakhouse. You could say man, though. Nah, that wouldn't be right. Okay, so restaurant operations. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into their income statement as well, because that's going to help us understand the business better, into their balance sheet. All right, human capital. I talk about hiring. So total team members, hourly and salaried, they have 197,000 people. Total number of hourly team members, 186,000. Percent of hourly team members female, so it's mostly female. 58% is female. Percent of hourly team members membership, racial or ethnic minority groups. So it's a minority heavy business. 57% of the employees are some type of they're minorities. That doesn't really help us with investment decision, but that's just another additional information for you to know. Book buyer says 58% female makes sense, right? I mean, every time I've been to like their restaurants, whether it's Olive Garden, LongHorn, and stuff, this typically has been females. It says most hostesses, servers are female, and there are more females on the planet in general. That is true as well. Yes. Yeah, and the average employee of their company makes $24 an hour, including tips. So in addition to the gender, racial, ethnic diversity of our workforce, our team members are also very diverse in age. Tradition is baby boomers, Generation X. Okay. Let's see what else. Also, it says, since fiscal 2022, we have maintained a policy that each hourly restaurant team members company-wide would earn a minimum hourly wage of at least $12 per hour, inclusive of tip income. All right, well, if it's inclusive of tip income, that's not. Book buyer says, I'll be more surprised if it was in construction or deep sea work. You don't see a lot of females in that work? Is that what you're saying? So none of their employees are unionized. It says none of our team members are covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Yes, absolutely. I mean, those type of jobs are definitely male dominated. Oh, look at this. It says Darden Dimes provides short-term financial grants to team members experiencing financial need caused by unexpected emergencies or catastrophic natural disasters. Participating team members donate as little as 10 cents from each paycheck to the Darden's Dimes Fund, which raised over $2.6 million and granted $2.8 million in fiscal 2025. Wow, that's pretty cool. So they take 10 cents from your paycheck, and if you experience some type of emergency, you could possibly get some grants. Book buyer saying, just like nurses and teachers are still female dominated. Fact, I think like for elementary teachers, it's like 80 or 90% are female. It is a big disparity. It says Darden's consolidated turnover rate for hourly team members was 67%. Man, so these people do not stay that long. It says the turnover, meaning how many people leave the job, 67%. Sheesh. This is one of the lowest rates in the restaurant industry. My God. Restaurant industry is a big turnover. Jesus Christ. They say 67% is the lowest rate in the restaurant industry. Just think about it. It's like if you hire 10 people and 7 of them left within a year, and this company is saying that's the lowest in the industry. Like, that's crazy. Oh my God. I mean, I knew it was a high turnover, but I didn't know it was that high. Yeah, I could envision fast food having a higher turnover, but for fast casual like Olive Garden and stuff, I thought they stay a little bit longer, but apparently not. But it seems like they have the lowest according to the restaurant industry. It says Darden consolidated management turnover rate of 16% was significantly lower. So management doesn't really leave the job as much. Let's see, competition. It says we expect competition. They don't specifically mention any specific competition, but they do mention they have a lot of competition. You know what's interesting is yesterday when we covered David and Buster's, they considered everybody and anybody to be competition. They considered nightclubs to be competition, casinos to be a competition. They considered movie theaters, anything that's like outside activity, Dave and Buster's considered as competition. So it's just interesting when you're reviewing different companies, what they view as competition. So trademarks, this company has, I mean, it has several well-known brand names. So they have trademarked all those names, as you can see. So that's something as an asset that they could recognize. So they own 2,100 locations. Oh, Book Buyer says you want to know about a monopoly of an industry, Indigo Books and Music in Canada. Oh, is that like a? I'm gonna just quickly search it. I know we're covering Darden, but I'm just curious what that is. What is that? Indigo Books and Music. I don't know anything about this. What is this? It's Canada's largest book, gift, and specialty toy retailer. A company which is headquartered in Toronto, operates multiple banners, including Indigo Chapters, Spirit. Oh, you know what sucks is if this was a public company, we could have covered it, but it says in April 2024, Indigo shareholders approved a deal for the company to be taken private. So then they delisted from the Toronto Stock Exchange. Oh, that sucks because I would have been interested actually to cover this. But because they went private in 2024, we can't actually look at their financial information. Only competition in Canada is Amazon. Huh, interesting. So you live in Canada, Book Buyer, I'm assuming? I mean, you know, it's interesting when like, even with the Olive Garden in Canada, they end up franchising it to a company called, oh, Jesus, what are they? What was the name of the company that they mentioned? Hold on, we're on page 23. To a company called The Recipe. It's the largest full-service restaurant operator in Canada. Are you familiar with them? It says, I still prefer Indigo for pricing, but I prefer Amazon for delivery. Nope. So they ended up, so this company, Darden, ended up franchising it to this company, which supposedly is the largest full-service restaurant operator in Canada. But yeah, I mentioned that to say the reason they did that is because they said Canada is a bit different and that it just made sense for them to outsource it to this company that operates in Canada. So it's just interesting, even though we're right next to each other, different ways of doing business and different businesses. Like I've never heard of the company that you just mentioned until now. So what else? Let's see. Looked at the competition, trademarks. It says, as of May 25, 2025, franchises operated 85 franchise restaurants in the United States, 69 franchise restaurants outside of the United States. So in addition, most of it is company-owned restaurants, but they do also use franchise model for some places in the United States, and then for most of the ones that are outside. Book Buyer is also mentioning another purely Canadian company is Canadian Tire. Okay. I'm gonna search. We might do, maybe next week. So this week is restaurant week. Maybe next week we could do like Canadian companies. I don't know much about Canada, so that would be interesting. Maybe we'll do that. Especially if it's publicly traded, we could cover it. All right, seasonality. It says our sales volume have historically fluctuated seasonally. Our average sales per restaurant are highest in the winter. What? So most people dine in the winter? Really? So the highest is in the winter. Does that surprise you guys? I'm very surprised. Average sales per restaurant are highest in the winter and spring, followed by the fall and the summer. I thought people would be eating out in the summer. Holidays, changes in the economy, severe weather, and similar conditions may impact sales volume. Book buyer is saying the Canadian Tire Corporation is a publicly traded company. It's one of Canada's largest publicly traded company with its shares available for purchase by investors. Well, you know what? There you have it, book buyer. We're going to put that as the company to cover Monday because we're going to start a new week. Every week is like a theme. And this is restaurant week. We've been covering, so we did Dave & Buster's yesterday and Wingstop the day before. So we'll do that. All right, government regulation. It says during fiscal 2025, 10.6% of our sales were attributed to the sale of alcoholic beverages. It says the regulation governing the sale of alcoholic beverages. Yeah. Let's see, what else? In terms of increased education, let's put the cash tips. Okay, we don't need to. So some of this stuff is very. We don't need to know this from an investment standpoint, or it's not as important. So that's why you see me reading sometimes and being quiet. All right, greenhouse emissions. I mean, they talk about greenhouse emissions. We don't need to know that for what we're doing today. Community foundation, we don't need to know that. All right, so risk factors. A failure to address cost pressures, including rising cost of commodities. I mean, every company that we've covered now at restaurants, they talk about the rising cost of commodity, and commodity, chicken is a commodity. Vegetables are a commodity. So when those prices go up, even a small amount, because they're operating at a bigger scale, that affects them heavily. And we looked at this with Wingstop, where a 10% increase of chicken, which let's say went from $1 to $1.10, that's only like a 10 cents for us. But for Wingstop, for example, that would have cost them an additional $1.8 million because of the amount of chicken they use. And with this company, because it is the biggest restaurant in the world, when chicken, pork, seafood, as we can see in the grocery stores, when those rise, they have a bigger impact for these companies. So they have to keep a watch on them. So that's a risk that they mentioned in here. It also says certain economic and business factors and their impacts on the restaurant industry and other macroeconomic factors, including unemployment, energy price, and interest rates that are beyond our control may adversely affect consumer behavior. Yep. Human capital, not able to get talented individuals. That's also another risk. Effective leaders may be subject to increased labor and insurance costs. Yep. Health concerns. Yep. Maintain food safety. And again, this one is almost in every annual statement. You're going to see a cyber security risk. Even a restaurant business, cybersecurity risk. And I'm telling you guys, if you're in school right now, study cybersecurity, because every annual statement, we've been going live for the past 45 days now. In every annual statement, cybersecurity risk is there. So if you're in school, study cybersecurity, guys. It is a risk that every company states that they have. It says we may incur increased costs to comply with privacy and data protection laws. Their systems are compromised. Yep. Risk related to integration of Chuy's. So Chuy's is the new company that they bought. It's a Mexican restaurant. But when you buy a new company, you have to integrate their system, from an accounting perspective, from sales perspective. So they're mentioning the risk if they fail to integrate. It says the integration of the Chuy's business into our operation is complex, costly, and time-consuming process that may not be successful. The primary areas of focus for successfully combining the business of Chuy with our operation include, among others, retaining and integrating management and other key employees. It says, even if we successfully integrate the business Chewy into our operation, there could be no assurance that we realize the anticipated benefits. But yeah, integrating. Oh, so Book Buyer says, going back to the problem with finding talented people, it's because they are in low-paying jobs that don't require experience or not applying because of the low salaries. I think it's both. You're absolutely right. Carol Brewer says 9 is 9 supposed to be. Was that a typo, or were you trying to say something? But yeah, when companies acquire a new company, it is hard to integrate. I've seen this where I worked for corporations and they buy a new company. It is hard to, make sure the systems align, make sure that people, work the same way that you want them to work. It's a tedious process. And Chewy's is a recent acquisition that Darden's did in 2024, Mexican restaurant. So it takes time for you to come together. So other risks that they're saying, it says we're subject to a number of risks related to public policy changes. Okay, we don't need to know that. It says we face intense competition if we have an insufficient strategy or focus on competition under the consumer landscape, our business, financial conditions, and result of operation could be adversely affected. It says the full-service dining sector of the restaurant industry is intensely competitive with respect to pricing, service, location, personnel, takeout, and delivery options, and type and quality of food. There are many well-established competitors, since we compete within each market within national and regional restaurant chains and locally owned restaurants. It says we also face growing competition as a result of the trend toward convergence in grocery, deli, and restaurant services, particularly in the supermarket industry, which offers convenient meals in the form of improved entrees, side dishes, or meal preparation kits from the deli or prepared food sections. I have to admit, grocery food entrees, specifically if you go to Whole Foods has good prepared food. Market Basket has good prepared food. I think Shaw's has good prepared food. That also is a competition for these restaurants, and they're lower priced and convenient. So they're mentioning those as a competition as well. It says, furthermore, delivery aggregators and food delivery service provide consumers with a convenient access to a broad range of competing restaurants, chains, and food retailers, particularly in urbanized areas. It says we compete primarily, and Book Buyer says Metro and Sobeys are great for pre-made food. Okay. I'm not familiar with those. Are those like Canadian companies? I'm not familiar with those at all. We have some in the US as well. There's a whole bunch of them. I used to use Factor, where they deliver you the food and it's like healthy. Canadian, yes, but I'm not sure if only Canadian. Yeah, guys, if you use that, their grocery chain. Oh, they're grocery chains. Okay. Yeah, we don't have those in the Northeast. Even the grocery chains are different. It's interesting. Do you guys have in Canada like Stop and Shop? Do you have Market Basket, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Aldi's, any of those? Along with Zers and no frills. Wow, okay. I do not know any of those names. We anticipate that intense competition will continue with respect to all these factors. So are you familiar with any of these restaurants? Book Buyer, LongHorn Steakhouse, Olive Garden, Capitol Grill, Chewy's. Oh, you are? Okay. So they have some over there. It says we're subject to changes in consumer preference. We have some of them in Canada. Got you. Okay. We're subject to changes in consumer preference that may adversely affect demand for food or restaurants. Okay. They're talking about fail to recognize, respond to, and effectively manage the accelerated impact of social media could have a material adverse impact on our business. And speaking of social media, we covered Cracker Barrel, which is a company in the US, a restaurant chain, and they made a logo change, and people were not happy with the logo change. They didn't even do a major change. They just removed a guy in the picture, but it was such a big negative feedback from the public, they end up having to go back to the original logo. So this is what they mean when they say one of the risks that Darden mentions is inability or failure to recognize, respond to, and effectively manage accelerated impact of social media could have a material adverse impact on our business. Because when Cracker Barrel changed their logo, they took a 10% hit in their stock because people were not happy with them. Book Buyer says Olive Garden and LongHorn Steakhouse are most familiar. We used to have a lot of Red Lobster as well, but it's been going down. So interesting enough, Darden used to own Red Lobster, but then they sold it off in around 2008. But yeah, they used to own that as well. Let's see, climate change, adverse weather. So 2100 location. Yeah, this restaurant chain owns a lot, and they owned, they have bought and sold other brands as well. Smoky Bones. I don't know if you guys have that in Canada. They used to own that as well. They sold that off. Okay, I think we're good with the risk. Go to their equity markets. Let's see. You go to their financial statement. That's enough for us. All right, cybersecurity again. Okay, so as of May 25, 2020, we owned and operate 2,100 restaurants. Our company-owned restaurants are located in all 50 of the United States. Of the company-owned restaurants, 94 were located on owned sites. So 94 of these restaurants, they own the location. The rest are leased. Land-only leases. We own buildings and equipment. So 1,100 of those locations, they only lease the land, they own the building and equipment. And 666, an ominous number, they do the ground and building lease. So they lease the land and also the building. Space and line other leases, they have 297. So in total, this is how many they have. But they lease most of their locations. They don't own most of it. And this is contrary to like McDonald's. McDonald's owns a significant portion of their real estate. And then they end up leasing it to their franchisees. Book Buyer says, this is what I like. I'm learning this in bookkeeping. That's awesome. So maybe this is our target market. We need to get bookkeepers to come into the show and watch this, because sometimes we don't know if we're going too much into detail. I don't know if we're boring people, but I'm glad you're saying that you like this. That's good. Yeah, invite your bookkeeping friends. Have them come to the show. So another thing that they're doing is they buy in their own shares. So share repurchases. It says since commencing our common share repurchase program in December 1995, we have repurchased a total of 213 million shares. So guys, in case, I mentioned this before, a company could buy their own stock. And they usually do this either if they notice, hey, our stock is trading low, so we could benefit from buying it now at a low price, and then later down the road reissuing it again at a higher price. You essentially making money on your own stock. in other cases, there's like other ratios that people look at, earning per share and stuff. So if you have less stocks being traded, so if the company buys its own stock, there's less stocks being traded, the earning per share looks up artificially, it becomes higher. So from an investment standpoint, people look at it as like, oh, they're making a higher earning per share. But really it's because there's less shares being traded as well because the company has bought it. But as you can see right here, they have spent a lot of money. They bought 213 million shares. That's not how much they spent. They spent way more than that. This is the amount of shares that they bought. And their stock currently trades at 206. So even if, let's say, they bought it at $100 per share, 213 million, that would be about $20 billion that they've spent over the past 20 years buying their own stocks back. Book buyer says, I'll be honest, my ass glaze over a lot, but I do tune it with certain words. Okay. All right, so this is the data. Oh man, finally seeing some color, man. Look at this shot, man. We have reviewed a lot of annual statements, and I'm telling you, some of these people are lazy to even give you some color. It is nice to see within a graph showing some color. That is awesome. I'm impressed. You'd be surprised at some of these places. So if you invested $100 in May 2020 in Darden Restaurants, that your money would be worth $307. So same scenario, right? If you invested $1,000 in May 2020, you would have about 3,007. And same thing, if you invested 10,000, it would have been 30,000. So you would have tripled your money. Now, if you had used that same money and invested in S&P 500, which most people recommend because it's supposed to be the top 500 companies, it's bunched into a ETF, you would have made 205. So Darden Restaurant has outperformed the S&P 500. And the same thing within the S&P Composite 1500 restaurants, which is comparable companies, other restaurants. If you invested 100 in May 2020, by May 2025, 179. Book buyer says, I wish I had money to invest. I mean, I'll tell you this, book buyer, you don't need to have big money. You start small, start with what you have, and you keep going. I mean, for example, we covered Dave & Buster's yesterday, and that trades at $25 for one stock. I mean, most people have $25, or you're able to make $25 somewhere, somehow. So it takes, and nowadays you could buy slices of stocks. So you don't need to buy the whole stock. You could own slices. So you could own, let's say, it's not all the stocks that certain stocks allow this, but most of them allow that now. So this stock, for example, well, book buyer says, I literally don't have 2 pennies to rub together, and Canada doesn't even use pennies anymore. Well, you know what? If you don't have money, then you got to have knowledge, right? And you're going the right direction in the right show. Perhaps when you do have money, you know what to do with it. And I hope you get some bread. You know what I'm saying? You seem like you're smart. I'm sure you're gonna get some money down the line. I could sense it. So when you do get your money, just remember some of these numbers to help you make better decisions. So they have performed really well over the past 5 years, guys. They are killing it. So the goal is now, is this going to continue to keep going? I mean, we're going to look at their income statement, balance sheet, and see if, does the future also look bright for this company? So they're talking about their recent acquisition. We know how much they paid. They paid $649 million. I got to go to bed now, night. Hey, appreciate you being here, book buyer. Feel free to show up every night. We stream every day. Thank you for being here. Total sales increased 6% to $12 billion. We already looked at that. says we expect fiscal 2026 sales from continuing operation to increase between 7 to 8%. It says we expect capital expenditures to incur to build new restaurants, remodel. So they're spending a lot of money on remodeling and new restaurants, $700 to $750 million. So even though they're the biggest restaurant chain in the whole world, they're still spending almost, $1 billion, less than 250 million, less than $1 billion, but 750 million in capital expenditures, whether that's remodeling, opening restaurants. All right. So sales, 12 billion. Cost of food and beverages was 3.6. Restaurant labor, 3.8. Man, that's actually pretty high. Okay. Restaurant expenses, 1.9 billion. So total operating cost was 10.7. So operating income was 1.3. Interest, 175 million. So then their net income was $1 billion. So they're making a little bit less than 10%. It's like 9% that they're making, which is not bad. It's not bad. I mean, what's the typical net income percentage for a restaurant business? That's not bad, actually. We've seen other companies make significantly less. So that's, and if you take back depreciation, technically, actually, that number becomes 1.5, so almost 10% in net income. So they're doing well. I mean, and similarly, we compare it to the previous year. I mean, certain costs did go up. General and administrative expense went up. Depreciation went up. Okay. But they do have more properties now with the recent acquisition of Chewy's. So that's probably the reason why that happened. Okay, they talk about how many restaurants that they have. Olive Garden is the biggest. All right, sales by location. All right, Olive Garden generated $5.2 billion. So that's their biggest component of their business. That's almost half of the money generated is from Olive Garden. So that's very important to them. LongHorn Steakhouse, $3 billion. Fine dining, which constitutes, all the steakhouses that they have, the Capitol Grill and all that, 1.3 billion. And then the other businesses are all bunched up to 2.5. So the most important businesses that they have really is Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse. That constitutes about 8 billion. That's like almost 80% of their business is from those two businesses. So the rest actually are not really that significant. So Olive Garden sales increase was primarily driven by U.S. same restaurant sales increase combined with revenue from new restaurants. So Olive Garden's still popping, man. People still like Olive Garden. The increase in U.S. same restaurant sales resulted from a 4.1% increase in average check. So the average check also increased. I mean, that could be also from they probably increased their price, which includes a 0.7 increase in off-premise catering sales. Olive Garden does catering too? Really? Man, okay. And LongHorn Steakhouse sales increase was primarily driven by the same sales increase combined with revenue from new restaurants. The increase in same restaurant sales resulted from a 3.1% sales increase, or 3.1% increase in average check, and a 1.9% increase in same restaurant guest counts. San says they be packed. I just haven't ate there in a while. Oh, Olive Garden's still packed, huh? Wow. You haven't ate in a while, too. Fine dining sales increase for fiscal 2025 was driven by revenue from new restaurants offset by same restaurant sales decreases. Okay, so fine dining for the same restaurants has actually decreased, but they have opened up new restaurant. So that's why the number increased. But really, people are not spending as much in those fine dining as they used to. Oh, they have that buy one get one pastas. Oh yeah. I mean, the price for Olive Garden is very reasonable. I mean, they even mentioned it, their price range. It's fairly affordable. I mean, when you consider it to like fast food restaurants, you pay a little bit extra and you get a proper meal. You can't beat that. Okay, so from their sales, their biggest cost is really food and beverage. Well, restaurant labor first, food and beverage. You know what's concerning though, guys, is like 31% of their cost is restaurant labor. If these machines come in and they can make the food, they could do all the other stuff, well, I mean, most of the stuff. Do you see why companies would want to do this? They're like, hold up, my biggest expense is restaurant labor. And then they have about almost a 70% turnover, meaning if if you hired 100 people, like 70 are leaving by the end of the year. Then now you have to find replacement for those. So just from a company standpoint, I mean, let's let the other stuff aside. Do you see why the rise of robots is going to be quick? Because there's a case to be made. 31% of their cost is restaurant labor, and then they don't have to deal with turnovers. Man, I wish AB was here. I could be like, yo, look at this. This is why. This is why it's happening. And it sucks, but this is inevitable. So yeah, guys, let me know if you work in the restaurant industry. Let me know if you've seen it something else. But yeah, if that's their biggest cost component is the labor cost. And these robots are going to cut down that cost heavily. All right, so it says food and beverage costs decreased as a percent of sales, primarily due to a 0.9% impact from pricing leverage. Restaurant labor costs decreased. Okay, marketing expenses increased as a percent of sales, primarily due to increased marketing and media. Pre-opening cost remained flat. Okay, income taxes. They had income tax of 136 million. Wow. Actually, it covered a lot of companies. They probably paid one of the biggest tax expenses we've seen as well. Really up there. It says HR 1, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, was enacted on July 4, 2025. The legislation includes several provisions that may impact the timing and magnitude of certain tax deductions. Key provisions include the permanent extension of several business tax benefits. We are currently evaluating those impacts. Okay. Let's see what else. So Olive Garden, fiscal year end, 20 base points. Yeah, the biggest, profit is coming from Olive Garden and LongHorn Steakhouse, followed by the other fine dining that they have from Capitol Grill, the other Roots Steakhouse. But Olive Garden and LongHorn are the meat and potatoes. Seasonality, again, it still surprised me that average sales per restaurant are higher in the winter. Guys, let me know. Do you guys go to the restaurant more in the winter and spring than in fall and the summer? Like, why is that? Why people would go to the restaurant in the winter and spring? Like, I'm just surprised. Maybe you guys could educate me. Do you go to the restaurants? The company is saying in here the seasonality of their business, and then their highest sales are in the winter and spring. I am surprised. I thought people in the winter would want to stay home. You don't want to go out to the restaurant. Apparently not. That does surprise. I thought people go out in the summer and then spend. Okay. This is their credit rating. So Guys, just like a person, a business also has a credit rating, and there's three companies that do the credit rating. There's Moody's, Standard and Poor, and then Fitch. Currently, look what this is. Our publicly issued long-term debt currently carries the following rating. So their credit rating is not that good. So Standard and Poor gives them triple B. A triple B is like a junk bond status. Look, what is a triple B? B. Well, I guess it's like triple B minus is what is this is like right above junk bond. What is junk bond rating? So triple B minus is junk bond. And the reason this is important is because as a company, if you have to raise money, you have to sell it in the market. And if you don't have a good rating, first of all, it's harder for you to find investors to raise money because these people are buying new companies. And the other reason is also you get a higher interest. Just like if you have a bad credit as a person, they're going to give you a higher interest. Same thing with a business. So Darden, as far as long-term debt, they don't have the best credit rating. So this means that they must have, we haven't looked at their balance sheet yet, but this must mean that they have a decent amount of debt. We're going to look at that. But yeah, that's not a good news. From all the stuff that we reviewed thus far in the annual statement, this is the one negative thing I just noticed. Credit is no good. All right, so long-term debt, well, 6.9 billion. Where's the actual balance sheet? Show me the balance sheet. Happy Thursday, guys, by the way. You guys still rocking here, man. Appreciate you being here. Still restaurant week, and we're going to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so. If there's a specific restaurant you want me to cover, let me know. I'm going to cover that tomorrow. Restaurant week. Let me know if there's any restaurant that comes into mind. All right. We're in their balance sheet. This is where we're going to see their assets, liabilities, bills they got to pay, properties they own, etc. Cash, 240 million. It's not bad. It's not terrible as like Dave and Buster's. They only have like $6.9 million in cash. Crazy. Inventory, 311 million. Oh, shoot. It is a big restaurant chain, but that is big. It's big inventory. Okay. So total current assets, this is assets that they have. They could be easily converted into cash within a year. It's 937 million. Land, building, and equipment. So they have a lot of land, building, and equipment, about 4.7 billion. Goodwill. This operating lease right of use asset, we don't need to worry about that. We're gonna get into an accounting world discussion of why this shouldn't even be in the balance sheet. I don't even agree. So this is like their lease cost. But anyways, trademarks, they have $1.3 billion. And total assets, they have 12.5. So decent balance sheet. Let's see some bills they got to pay within a year. So just right off the bat, total current assets is 937 million. Current liabilities is 2.2 billion. So that means they cannot meet their current obligations. Whenever I see this, it shouldn't cause a big alarm because this company is fairly profitable. It could be two indications. One, it might be mismanaged, or second, it could be where they might be relying more on long-term debt to meet their current liabilities because they're just prioritizing growth. And then eventually they're just going to stop and pay their bills and without taking more debt. And with this company, I think that's what's happening. Because they have a long-term debt about 2.1 billion, which is not that crazy, actually. I'm surprised. I actually thought they're going to have worse, but that's not that bad. So total liability is about 10.2, total assets 12.5. And if they do sell Bahamian Breeze, which they say they plan to do, that's gonna give more cash as well. So that's gonna help improve their balance sheet. So that's another positive news because their balance sheet is not that pretty. It's not terrible, but it's not pretty at all. Now, the other thing that we're going to look at, and then we're going to just look at the stock, is the cash flow statement. This is important because it actually shows you how much cash they spent. Some of this other stuff, like depreciation and stuff, it's the gradual loss of value of a thing, but it's not like, let's say your car, right? It's worth 20,000 one year, but then it's worth 15,000 next year. You didn't actually spend 5,000. But just the car value went down. And as a business, when the value goes down, you could deduct that. So when you see it in your income statement, depreciation of 560 million, you'd be like, oh, but they didn't actually spend that. It's just the gradual decline of, so you have to add that back in because it's not an actual cash expense. So that's why it's important to look at the cash flow statement as well, so you could see how much did they actually. So they generated 1.7 billion from net cash provided by operating activities, which is good. And then after that, investing activities, they spent 644 million buying up land, buildings, and equipment. They also spent 613 million dollars on acquisition of Chewy's. That's how much they spent. They also spent on some softwares and stuff, something that was beneficial for their business because they spent 27.3 and they capitalized it, meaning that there's future value associated with it. So they spent all in general just on investing activities 1.2 billion. So they got 1.7 from their business, spent 1.2 on investing activities for the future. Then financing is like debt that they acquired if they paid dividends. So they paid $658 million in dividends. And then they also spent $418 million buying up their own stocks. So this is where I don't know why they bought their own stock when you're. Anyways, let me not get on this. I'm gonna end up ranting. I've noticed this with companies. It's like, why are you spending this much when you have debt and stuff that you got to pay? But they're still anticipating future growth. This is probably the reason that they bought their own stock again. Last year they spent 453 million buying up their own stock. This year 418. 2 years ago 458. So just in 3 years they spent over 1.2 billion dollars buying their own stock. So they're anticipating future growth. But at the end of the day, they ended up in cash and cash equivalents of 254 million. So that's that. Let's go back to the stock and let's just see if maybe there's like any recent news, maybe that's juicy. Oh, look at this right here. There's an article from Yahoo Finance. It says Darden Restaurant recently reported fourth quarter results, posting adjusted earnings per share $2.98. This performance, which surpassed analyst expectation, has reinforced positive sentiment among analysts who continue to rate the stock as a moderate buy. We'll now consider how Darden's better than expected earning and new guidance could influence its investment outlook. It says, to be a shareholder in Darden Restaurants, you need to believe in the resilience of the casual dining industry sector and the company's ability to grow earnings, even as guest counts across the industry face headwinds. The latest earning beat and raised guidance may give investors added short-term confidence, but they do not immediately change the key risk. A sustained drop in guest visits could still pressure future revenue, regardless of current momentum. Among Darden's recent announcements, the start of a new US $1 billion share repurchase program stands out. So they have planned even more share repurchase program. This move often signals management's confidence and long-term value, and it could support earning per share growth. A catalyst that may buffer recent operational concerns. Despite these positive signals, it's crucial to remember that if guest traffic weakens further in coming quarters, Darden Restaurants is projected to reach $14.3 billion in revenue, so that's up from the previous year, and $1.4 billion in earnings by 2028. The outlook assumes a 5.7% annual revenue growth. It says simply, Wall Street community members offered 5 fair value estimates for Darden from US 135 to 232.78 per shares. While these views differ widely, many echo the industry's uncertainty around guest counts and consumer spending trends, reminding you to consider multiple opinions when weighing Darden's prospects. So the biggest risk that they're saying is like people are not going out as much. It's not just necessarily if to Olive Garden or not. It's just in general, people are not going to restaurants, and that's the biggest risk that they state with this company. I mean, that is a risk for sure. People are feeling the hurt economically. That is a risk that's going to exist, but we are long-term investors. You know, you got to think long-term, 5 years, 10 years term. And personally, I think people are still going to be going out to restaurants to eat, dine out, and enjoy time with friends and families. So right now it's at $206. Again, the PE ratio, it trades at 23 times its earning, but it's not that expensive. Earning per share is making $8.89. That's pretty good earning per share. Decent dividend, 2.9%. It's almost 3%. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we're just not holding the stock, and you get 3%. So it's like $6 that you get just as a dividend. And then if the stock goes up, obviously, you get money as well. So let's look at the holders. Let's see some insider activity. These are people that are inside the company. We could look to see if they have been buying the shares, if they've been selling. So in general, there was 233,000 shares purchased by insiders, and they sold 123,000. In general, overall, they've been buying more than they've been selling. So that's a good indication. You know, if you're seeing a lot of that, that means people that work there are optimistic. So if you're trying to invest, it's like, all right, if the people inside are feeling optimistic about the company, that's a good sign. It's not a foolproof thing, but right, these are just additional information to help you make better decisions. And because if you've seen them, because those people don't want to lose money either, right? If you work for a company and you own some stock and you know you're about to lose some money, people don't want to lose money, so they would sell it. But if you see some positive, like them buying it, that would give you an additional information. Like, hold up. Another thing that we look at is analysis by other experts. In addition to our own analysis, we look to see what the market is saying, right? And so there was, as of August, right here, there were 30 analysts covering the stock. 14 are saying buy, which is the majority. 11 are saying hold, so that's 25. And then you see some green in here. They don't have the numbers for that, but there are also people saying strongly buy. So the majority of analysts are saying buy. And the average estimate for the price that they're saying is 232. If it does jump to 232, that is about 14%. return that you're getting, and if it goes out all the way to 255, that's a bigger return that you're getting. So it's more positive sentiment right now about the stock. And one thing that also that caught my attention is two things, right? One is the Feds are going to decrease the interest rate in September. They have indicated that. Usually when they cut the interest rate, because now borrowing becomes easier, consumer spending goes up, and that's spending on consumables. It could be electronics. It could be on people going out. That usually accompanied. So that's around September. And then we also saw that Darden said their biggest guest count is around the winter time, followed by the spring. Winter is coming. So the busiest time for this restaurant, people go to Olive Garden, LongHorns and stuff around that time, which surprised me, but this is what the business is saying. So that's another reason to be optimistic. So if you want to make a quick investment in this company, there's just a few conditions that are right that would make this stock a little bit more interesting. The other thing also that would make me see this stock positively is the company spending. They already have spent $1.2 billion in buying their stocks over the past 3 years. And they recently announced that they're spending $1 billion to buy their own stock back. Companies don't typically do this unless they are optimistic about the future. The stock is currently trading at the highest that it's been, but it does hold one of the main, it holds Olive Garden, it holds LongHorn Steakhouse, Capital Grill, Chewy's. God, why am I forgetting some of the names? They hold top 4 positions of the top 10 restaurants in America. So they have a pretty good presence, and it's the biggest restaurant chain in the world. And they're still spending $700 million per year in new locations and buying up new brands. They just spent over $600 million buying Chewy, a Mexican restaurant. And then another thing as well is Bohemian Breeze is a company that they own, and they about to liquidate that. And that's also going to help them with their balance sheet looking pretty. That's going to help with their stock rising as well. So for all those reasons, man, and they're making about 10% net profit, which is pretty good. Their biggest cost is labor. And I'm telling you, automation is coming down the line. I'm thinking about the future, right? We think about 5-10 year term. We've seen robots now turning burgers and stuff. There's no reason. Let's see if we could look it up. Is Darden using machines for the future? Because if your biggest cost is labor, and now a lot of companies are the Darden Restaurant. I can't spell it for nothing. And automation. Let's see if they have AB in the house. What up, baby? Robots. AB, you came in about to close out in like 5 minutes, but appreciate you being here, man. AB is my co-host, man. He has some stuff that he has to handle, so he's overseas. In case you're a new viewer, so I'm holding it down until he gets back. But typically we do it together. That's how the format works. But he's out there now, but he's still showing love, coming in. So let's give a shout out to AB, man. Appreciate you being here, bro. I hope Motherland is treating you well. Santa's saying, bring me some good food, AB. Yeah, bring me some food too, man. Let me see. Darden Restaurant. So AB, just to recap, since you just came, Darden Restaurant is the biggest restaurant group in the whole world. They had over 400 million visitors in fiscal year 2025. They hold LongHorn, they hold Olive Garden, they hold the Steakhouse, Capital Grill, major brands. Chewy's, they own that. He's saying it should be back by Tuesday. So you guys tune in next Tuesday. This week we're doing restaurant week. But all in all, guys, man, I like the stock. I really do. I know it's at the highest that it's been, but I think they have some room for growth. They have been consistently increasing their revenue and even past stock performance, right? We looked at it. We said if you spend $100 in 2020, your money would be over $303 as of 2025, outperforming the S&P 500, outperforming the restaurant industry. Yeah, Chewy's, they own Chewy's. They bought them in 2024 for over $600 million. And so they obtained about over 100 locations as a result of that. But the biggest restaurant operator in the whole world, not just the US, in the whole world. And yeah, and then they're making about, close to 10% of net profit. Well run. Their biggest cost is really labor. It's about 31%. Aside from that, they don't really have any major expenses. They have some debt, but nothing too crazy. They're spending a lot of money on expanding. Same store sales have been increasing year over year for Olive Garden, LongHorn. The upscale, this guy said the economy is not slowing down. It's funny because before you joined, they literally said that. And most analysts, the biggest risk with this company that they see is because the overall macro environment is that people are not going to restaurants. And I know AB is probably doing this to get a rise out of me, but in general, people are not going out as much. But for whatever reason, Olive Garden, LongHorn, which are the biggest components, LongHorn and Olive Garden make up about 80% of this business, even though they have a whole bunch of businesses under their umbrella. Those two are the highest performing, but they also have the most locations. But yeah, man, this stock is very interesting. It's I think I'm gonna invest for sure. Again, guys, we don't give investment advice. We can't give you, but what we could do is give you the education, some necessary information for you to make better decisions. That's all we're here for. And I hope we have done that tonight. The chat, we did have some activity. Now it's kind of slowing down, but all the day ones here. Shout out to you guys, man. Appreciate you being here. It is restaurant week. I do not have a company to cover tomorrow. So if you have a suggestion, if it's a publicly traded company, we could cover it. Please drop the name of the company that you want me to cover. We cover that tomorrow. Again, I want to give a shout out to, from the top, I'm going to just go back to the top. AJ, shout out to you, man. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to San. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to also the new viewers. I wish I knew her actual name. God, what was her name? She was here for a little bit. Book Buyer. Shout out to you. I know you say you're going to subscribe. So shout out to you for being here today. Who else am I missing? I just want to make sure I got everybody. And for anybody that's just watching this for the first time, thank you for being here and rocking with us. We stream every day, and every week we do a different theme. This week is restaurant week. Next week, I was telling Book Buyer we might do Canadian week because she mentioned that. But yeah, we're here for the people. Please like, subscribe, comment. We are trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. And shout out to my brother AB for showing up here and showing love. He's handling business down there, but he's still coming here. AB says being overweight and eating out is our American duty. For sure, man. It is our American duty. And the price is reasonable too. Again, guys, thank you for being here. appreciate you for being here. Much love to all of you guys. I'm signing out. Have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is the Profit Report with AB and Steve. Have a good one, guys.